you drive across that bridge. After you finish 10, you drive across that bridge, and you're going to be standing on 11 tee box looking around like, where am I at? Where did I just, is this right? Is I on the same golf course? Like, it just goes totally like lowlands, and like there's marsh everywhere, and there's some like interesting forced carries. It's really fun.
Pine Talk is where Carolina golf's past, present, and future come together. We dive into the stories, courses, and people that make Carolina golf special. Because golf here is more than just a scorecard.
Today on Pine Talk, I am joined by Greg Middleton. He's the owner of Solina Golf Club. And Greg, like a lot of us, started out with beer, buddies, some weekend rounds, and has quickly turned it into something much larger. So, Greg, thank you for joining
Ryan,
me.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, good to be here.
So, talk to me, like, at what point did golf turn from like a hobby to something bigger for
Well,
you?
like you said, I started playing when I was 25-ish, and it was just something. I played tennis all through high school. Went to college, kind of got out of it, didn't really have a great outdoor hobby. Some of my buddies were playing it, and I thought they were wild for going out 95-degree weather in South Carolina. And like, I was like, no, I'm just going to go on the boat or hop in the pool or whatever. And it kind of started with just drinking some beers, driving the golf cart around. And then the next thing I knew, I wasn't really drinking when I was playing anymore. And it was more about the playing of the golf. And yeah, 100 rounds a year, and you just get addicted real quick. And at first I thought, this is just a quick little thing and it'll pass over. Here I am 10 years later, loving it. I mean, it's such a good time. We were just talking about the member guests we had this weekend, and it's just so fun. Everybody from all skill levels can come together. As long as you handicap it out, everybody plays well. And as long as there's not a few sandbaggers in there, I guess there always is. But yeah, it's fun. Now here we are.
Yeah. And so I actually, preparing for this, I listened to your interview on the Off the Hosel, the SCGA podcast.
Yeah, that was fun.
And the funny thing is, I was listening to that podcast, and I did not realize Alan Knight is one of the co-hosts of that podcast. He's actually helped me film some of these interviews.
He was here yesterday and the day before too. Yeah, he's been there.
Shout out to Alan. But so when in that interview, you mentioned Tobacco Road in that interview. Was that like one of the courses that like...
Tobacco Road's just a fun golf course.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say Solina is like Tobacco Road. There's nothing like Tobacco Road, but you'll see when you go out there and play, the holes out there are funky. It's far away from, okay, it's par 4, I'm gonna hit driver, and then where's the green? Oh, it's just right there in front of me, or like simple dog leg. You'll see. I mean, like hole 1, you can hit a hybrid or a driver, and either one will give you 60 yards out, if you have a good shot off the tee. And it's weird,
And I bring that up because that, like, part of how I even got into doing all this was like, I went on a buddy's trip for the first time, and we played Tobacco Road on that trip, and it just like something sparked for me. That's
like, fun, isn't it?
There's like golf has something, like there's something different, and that wanted me to like explore. So,
and I think that at a deeper level, that's what golf is, right? It's an excuse to hang out, right? Hang out, fellowship, whatever you want to call it. It's all the same thing. And I think people just want to hang out with other people. They want to come out to an adult playground and drive golf carts and, swing sticks. And yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting. It's a sport where like you're playing by yourself most of the time, but it's meant to be played with other people. And that's what makes it fun. Are there any other courses? Were there any other like experiences you had that really like, snagged you?
Of course. I mean, traveling all around the country and playing golf, I mean, that's really what my vacations have turned into now. Even when I bring my family with me, we sneak away and we go play golf. And my son, he's 5, so he likes to putt and drive the golf cart. And my wife plays probably 20 or 30 times a year, and which is a lot for most people. But when you're comparing it to me, I guess it's not. And so just traveling all around, I try and bring what I can back. One of the things, like you mentioned on that podcast, the biggest thing I kept talking about were these single rider golf carts. And I think that's probably the fastest way to get to where I want to go. I've noticed this trend of all these golf courses I go to where everyone's talking about pace of play now, but no one's really doing anything about it other than just saying, hey, we play fast here. This is what we do. This is how we operate. We want everyone to play in 3.5 hours or 3:40. but there's not a lot of work being done to help that guy who is playing the 4.5 or 5 hour round. There's nothing organic that anybody's doing to help speed that pace of play up. I didn't do the single riders so that I could play in 2.5, right? I did it so that the guy who does play that 4.5 or 5 hour round can play it in 4 and not be having everyone backed up all day.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's probably one of the most talked about problems in golf, but like nobody necessarily does anything to try to execute or actually do anything to
Trust
change
me,
that.
I went all over. I traveled all over, and then of course on the internet, just Googling single rider golf carts, trying to see if anybody's done this before. I couldn't find anything, and I was like, well, let's do it.
Yeah.
Might not get another chance. So
I'm curious, are there other like opportunities or like issues in golf that you see like could be fixed?
Well, we were just talking about green speed. That's one of the things people don't talk about a lot either. The step meter on the greens. For every step meter, for every foot more on the step meter that you're reading, you're adding 7 minutes to an average pace of play round of golf. Which 7 minutes, going from a 10 to an 11, that's not a big deal. But when you are talking about going from an 8 to a 12, now you're talking about 28 minutes. You're talking about adding half an hour to that pace of play because you went from 8 to 12. I talked about it a little bit on the podcast too, just in the research of the other golf course we acquired, going back and looking through the history. When a lot of these golf courses were being designed, the championships were being played on 5s and 6s. I mean, like the fastest thing you'd see in the 1960s would be an 8. Right? I mean, like an 8 is super fast. If you came out here right now and these things are rolling an 8, everybody would have a duck, dude. And and I think that you just got to go back and think, okay, since just that one thing, everyone going from 8s to wanting to play 12s is adding substantial time to the round of golf, and it's something that people aren't thinking about. And you've got to be able to adapt. And if you want to have faster greens, which will make for a slower round, you've got to do something else. I don't know if the answer is single rider carts. We're trying it, and it's fun, and it's been kind of a big part of our club here. But hopefully there's something else on the way. But I don't know.
Do you have any other ideas or anything you guys are going to try to test out here at Solina?
Oh yeah. I mean, anytime somebody brings me an idea, I'd love to talk to them about it.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things my dad's been talking about for a long time is just trying to shorten the game to 12 holes. Because he's like, man, 12 holes, he said, that's the perfect amount of golf is to go out and play 12 holes. Because he said, by the time I get to 12, everything just kind of falls apart after that anyway. So when we opened here, we actually we only opened 11 holes. We opened the front 9 and 10 and 18, which makes for a nice little loop. So you can walk the front 9, and then you finish 9, you come right here to 10, you walk 10 and 18, and you're done. So it's nice, like 11-hole loop. And a lot of guys have kind of kept on that, and they'll come out here when the time's quick and they want a little more than 9, or they're trying to settle a bet or something and they want the last 2 holes. It's kind of fun just to hit 10 and 18 and roll in. But
yeah, which I mean, I also like the history of the game. Like a lot of golf started with just 9-hole courses, and
right,
it wasn't always 18. Like that's a more recent thing.
18 is such an arbitrary number. I don't know why that is, but everyone settled on 18, and that's been established. So we'll always have 18 holes, but I think it's fun to make interesting new little loops when you can.
No, that's really neat.
And now you can record your handicap. I mean, as long as you played more than 9 holes, you can do it. So you can just record those 11 holes if you want, and it'll figure out what your handicap is based on that. So it's fun.
Sure. So let's rewind. Talk to me, like, how did you actually end up getting, because you're the owner of the Players Club, which is an indoor place here in Columbia, now Solina, and then recently Columbia Country Club. Talk to me, how did this all like happen? Why did you want to get into golf?
I don't know. That's a great question. I guess a lot of the courses I've been to were fantastic, and I wouldn't have changed anything about them. But at the same time, there's a lot of courses that I would have liked one thing to have been different, or 2 things to have been different. And it could be as simple as the cart girl, not going the opposite direction, right? I mean, these little things. And I said, I want a chance. I want to stab at it, right? I just want to see. And I don't know that that we will be the best, but I just wanted the opportunity to try. So that's kind of, I guess, in a nutshell, why I got into it. Just take my own hand at it. We have been operating a few restaurants downtown for a while. So the food and beverage, when you're starting a golf club, the food and beverage, I have found in talking to other owners and other boards of other clubs, is for them the trickiest part. The golf and the management of the golf and the treatment of the superintendent and those things, people can wrap their mind and their head around that. But the food and beverage seemed tricky. But we had already been doing that for so long that I said, let's do it. Let's go.
Okay. So talk to me about when you were approached about Solina. What was that process, or how did that go?
That all came about very quickly. The original developer for Indian River, the Young family, he had passed away several years ago, and his daughter was operating the club. And she's the one that approached me and said, "Hey, I know that you have a passion for it. I'd like to see, what you could do here." And so we worked that out pretty quickly. We closed the club and did a full 18-hole renovation. So we essentially started over with brand new membership. Now we do have a lot of members here now that were members of the previous club, so that's exciting. A bunch of guys that live on the golf course that were very excited about it and all joined up. And then Columbia Country Club was pretty fresh too. So we're hopefully doing we're going to do an 18-hole renovation first. We're going to go back to as close as we can to the original Ellis Maples design. So do a very similar renovation to what we did here. Obviously, we don't have to do quite as much there, but the same grass. So we'll have Tifton Eagle greens and Tahoma fairways and collars. It'll be fun.
Nice. And so when did George and Wesley, the Bryan Bros, how'd that come about?
That was from the very beginning. Okay. I mean, that was. I mean, I wasn't going to do this if they weren't willing to help. I mean, they were obviously a lot of length had to be added here, as do many other courses, and they were instrumental in helping us organize where certain tee boxes should be. I mean, like that 18 tee box back there is crazy. I mean, originally there was just there was an old burn pile there, so we had to get rid of that and extend those tees back another 100 yards off of what the tip originally was. And I was like, y'all are crazy, but it works. It works really well. And this green right here, they suggested a slight shift over, a little bit closer to the water, and so yeah, it's been really fun working with them.
So the actual layout of the course, how much were holes fully changed? Is it?
For the most part, we kind of did more of just a reconstruction and not a rerouting. So we left the holes more or less like they are. Obviously, added a lot of distance. We're pushing 7,000 from the back now at a par 71. There were a few holes that we had to, I don't want to say blow up, but there were several holes that had a lot of weird rolling hills to help try and mitigate water. Things that you did have to do in course design originally, but now the drainage systems and the irrigation has become a little more advanced, so you don't necessarily need those things. So we were able to go in and flatten some areas out. Took out a few trees, where we had to. There's one hole in particular, the one that the water tower's on. There was a big oak tree right in the middle of the left side of the fairway, right before you go down the hill. But the problem is that tree didn't allow grass to grow. And without that grass, the water would just run down that hill and it just washed everything out. So there were some areas that we had to go in and we removed that tree, and then we had to shorten up that hill a little bit just to keep the water from running away. But for the most part, everything stayed the same except length. So
I mean, this course, so it wasn't where we're saying it was a pre-existing golf course.
Sure.
Did you you saw it and this has some good bones, it could be turned into something?
Everybody that played Indian River before will tell you the same thing. The layout's incredible. I mean, it really is. And when I say incredible, I mean a little wild. Again, we mentioned Tobacco Road. It is not Tobacco Road, but I mean, I think people like that, especially when they come in for a trip or they're just coming to play a golf course for the first time. I think it's kind of refreshing to come out and play somewhere that's whoa, what do you mean? What do you mean it's the tee box is on the water over there? What is this? I think that's just really fun.
Were there, in the whole process of reconstructing this place, were there any moments or any kind of decisions where you were ooh, this is a little crazy, or I'm out of my comfort zone, and it turned out to be a good decision?
That happens that happened the entire project. The whole thing was uncomfortable like that. I mean, you start a simple thing like, oh, we're gonna, the irrigation system needed some work. They didn't, the heads weren't all working. So you say, well, let's put a couple $100,000 worth of new heads in, and then you're like, well, if you're going to put in new heads, you might as well, redo the pipe. And if you're going to do the pipe, you might as well have a new, the new 2-wire system from Toro. And if you're going to do that, you might as well do a new pump station. And so the next thing you know, you're like, well, that was $2.5 million, and it's just, but it's all great. And I'm glad we did, because otherwise you would have had 30-year-old pipes sitting in the ground. You would have had an old pump station. You would have had all these things that are lingering out there that could quit at any time. When you go in and you're sprigging greens and you're sodding fairways, and if your pump house goes out in the middle of July, you got to be putting 100,000 gallons of water on a green, you're in a lot of trouble. So there's really not another way to do it other than having that pump station. So it all turned out for the better, and we're still learning things like that. It's still just making sure that we're trying to be as close to perfect as we can, in the craft.
Got it. And so, I mean, you're clearly you're very knowledgeable about the turf, and you mentioned Ellis Maples before, some of the history.
I know enough to talk about it, but if I'm in a room of superintendents, I wouldn't be able to keep up, dude. Those guys, it's an art for them. It's art just as much as a science.
Yeah, so did that come out because you are now involved in the golf industry, or did you always have an interest in some of that stuff?
No, it came about through the construction of the golf courses, and I'm not necessarily the one who's making the decision about going to Tifton Eagle or going to Tahoma, but you want to know. You want to be a part of it. You want to be the captain of the ship and at least have some general knowledge of what you're putting down. Because when a member asks, oh, what kind of grass is this? You want to be able to be like, oh, it's this. It's exactly, we overseed with rye. And they like hearing it too. It's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole science to golf that that's the side of golf that you just is so overlooked, and that's why I really like talking with superintendents, because it's such an underappreciated side of the game, and it's just so intricate. It's not a simple thing.
No, well, I mean, we were just talking about the irrigation. You think about that. That's something that you never see. I mean, hardly ever anybody even sees one running, right? Because you're going to do it early in the morning before everyone's off there. Maybe you're hand watering some, but you never see it. It was one of the most expensive things on the golf course. It's one of the things that they are monitoring constant. I mean, he can literally pull up each individual sprinkler head on his app, on a phone or a tablet or whatever, and be able to turn them on and off. And it's one of those things that you're constantly monitoring, but nobody sees. And the superintendents all joke around, and they're like, you're doing a good job if nobody says anything to you, right? So... and it's good. I try, he was at the member guest this weekend, and a couple of other guys were, and I want them to mingle and be available to ask questions, and I want them to be seen more, just so they can be appreciated like they should be.
Yeah,
for that reason.
It's a thankless job a lot of times, and more people love to complain more than
I know, and that's what they were saying. They were like, if nobody's complaining, you're doing your job, right? So it's fun.
So, have you dove into any of the golf architecture history? Have you gotten into that?
Of course. I mean, particularly with Columbia Country Club, because we're doing a full historic renovation. We're actually working right now to get it on the historic register. So in order to do that, you want to make sure you're not messing something up. If you're going to go back to original Ellis Maples design, you want to study his design. We're working with an architect, Michael Gleason, who did a smaller renovation back in the early 2000s at Columbia Country Club. And he's very familiar with his designs and how we would do things. And he's been instrumental in, hey, there's a bunker here now. Ellis Maples would have never put a bunker short right of the green, because he would have wanted people to bail out there and play in. And there's these interesting things. I'm by no means a professional, but it is fun to learn about it and to be able to appreciate it. I've been out a few times with some golfers who have next level appreciation for golf course architecture. And it's really fun playing golf with them, because you just, even you as a golfer, you probably just you wouldn't notice that unless someone pointed it out. Oh, how interesting is this little knoll of this hill right here? Because it makes the effective size of the green 25% smaller than you think it is. But to you and me, we're just out there yeah, it's a hill. I hit it. It sucks, you know. But like to some of those people, they're like, man, that's just a really interesting shape there, and it was fun. Here we didn't do a historic renovation because I think the course was originally developed in the '80s, so we had a little more like free reign with how we wanted to shape things and move things around, and so you just get to keep it wild, you know.
Yeah.
It's fun. You'll see.
Do you
You'll
know?
see.
Do you know who the original like designer architect?
It was the Youngs.
Okay.
The Youngs developed and designed it themselves.
Yeah.
They did a few other golf courses in the area. If I'm not mistaken, I think they did Timberlake on the other side of the lake, and they did a couple of golf courses in Myrtle Beach too, I think. So,
Cool.
yeah.
So, what have been some of your like biggest lessons in this process?
Make sure you have a contingency for your budget. So make sure that your budget has at least 10 or 20% on top of that, because you know, steel and concrete is one thing. You're gonna put the steel here and you're gonna put the concrete there, and you know how it's gonna work. But when you're dealing with a living thing, it gets complicated. You know, you can't just put this hill here because the grass might not take on it, right? And especially when you start dealing with sand versus clay or whatever. We're very lucky that we have sand here. I didn't realize how big of a deal that is, but apparently it's huge, you know, to have a sandy base. So certainly have that contingency in there for growing, and allow for that growth. Be open to the idea that what you had originally visioned might not be the best option. Especially, I mean, we're just talking about golf course architecture here for a minute, but I mean, you could talk about staffing, you could talk about the design of the clubhouse if you wanted to, you could talk about operations, you could talk about single riders, right? Single riders are my vision, but I want to go into it with an open mind that if this isn't something for the future, I want to be open to that, right?
Yep. And so, has anything about being involved in the golf industry, has that taught you about anything, or has any of that been useful to some of your other industries and stuff you work in?
Of course. I mean, especially we were just talking about superintendents. There's positions in these other industries that feel the exact same way, right? You could talk about the brewers, you know, in brewing. You could talk about the back of house, the kitchen staff in the restaurants that don't actually get to see the patrons, but they're so integral to it. And to make sure that you're expressing that appreciation to everybody, I think is really important.
I guess you want to shout out at some of the other things you're involved in the Columbia area?
Yeah, just a few restaurants on Main Street. Your Health is an organization of ours. We have this one, the Players Club. You had mentioned that the Players Club is awesome, and really that came apart. Shout out to my sister. We had started the Players Club originally with Topgolf, so it was one of the first Topgolf swing suites, and we had 5 simulators on the first floor of our building. I don't know if you've been there. I have to take you there this afternoon if you're available. And so the 5 simulators were downstairs on the first floor, and then my sister said, "Hey, I'm hearing a lot of people want a membership here. You know, they don't really want to pay the $50 or $100 an hour or whatever, but they'd appreciate a membership." And I said, I don't really know about like having a membership just to save people money, but what if we put some simulators up on the 3rd floor, you know, and we made it a private members only area for the Players Club. That worked so well that a couple months later, we're like, yeah, we're moving all these simulators from the 1st floor up to the 4th floor. So we have the full 3rd and 4th floor now is private members only simulator club with 8 full swing golf simulators, 2 bars, expansive menu, because we have 2 other restaurants on that 1st floor. So you got sushi and hibachi, and then you have soup, salad, sandwiches, wings, hot dogs, whatever you want. It's really cool. It's a really cool spot. I like that place. Hopefully we can bring some more simulator environments to the actual green grass too. That'd be fun. I've seen a couple of the courses up north like doing that just because their seasons are so short. So they'll throw a simulator or 2, or I've seen some people take over the whole cart barn and they'll have 12 simulators in there for the whole winter. Hopefully we can do a Players Club here and there, and maybe take it to some other golf courses too. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, that's a really neat idea. So I guess we'll wrap it up. Like, for somebody that doesn't know anything about Solina Golf Club, what would somebody need to know?
Like if they were coming here to play?
Yeah.
be very open-minded about your shot. Okay, I mean, you really got to be. Sometimes you've got to be really creative here. One of our best players here, Michael Sims. I was talking to him after the club championship. He won, obviously, and like our preview play club championship. And I said, "How were you playing the holes this weekend?" And he said, "Well, there were several greens I didn't even go for." He said, "I'd literally just miss them in a particular area so I could chip up, make my putt with a par, and get out of here." He said, "There's a lot of greens out here that just aren't for attacking. And so you just got to be smart when you play it." But it's fun. Like I said, first tee, you're going to be like, "Where's the green?" Like, you don't even see it. You see the second green, but yeah, it's just really fun.
Okay, so for my own personal knowledge, before I go play, what greens do I need to be more careful with?
When you start on the back, I'm telling you, the front, it's weird. A lot of people talk about, different fronts and backs. This one is no exception to that. You start, one plays uphill, probably 20 or 30 yards, 2 plays down, 3 plays up and then down, 4 plays down, 6 plays down 100 feet on your approach shot. 7 plays, it's a 240 yard par 3, but it plays down to 220 with water on the right. 8 plays up and down. It's crazy. Then you switch around, and I think on the back, you might have 15 feet of elevation back there. It is just, you'll see. It just, you drive across that bridge. After you finish 10, you drive across that bridge, and you're going to be standing on 11 tee box looking around like, where am I at? Where did I just, is this right? Is I on the same golf course? Like, it just goes totally like lowlands, and like there's marsh everywhere, and there's some like interesting forced carries. It's really fun. It's 2 very different golf courses.
And whether it's aesthetically or like the strategy of it, do you have a favorite hole out here?
A favorite hole. I mean, 17 is obviously aesthetically, it's our shortest par 3 out here, but the tee box is a fish hook out on the water. So when you're standing on that, you're not playing into the water, you're playing away from it. It's right over there.
Yeah.
But just don't forget, when you're on 17 tee box, don't forget to turn around and look at the lake, because it's really cool. You can see 18, you can see 9, you can see all the way to 8 tee box from there, and it is, I don't know, a mile away. I think from 13 green to 6 tee box, it's probably 2 miles apart from each other. I mean, they really are like way out there. So you can definitely walk the golf course, but I don't recommend it. Grab a single rider and be on your way.
Speed your way through it.
So 17 is the prettiest, and I think from an architectural perspective, God, that's so tough. 15 is really fun. 15's got a little bunker in the middle. Hole 3 is 492 yards, and it's a par 4. And 15 is a par 5, and it's only 1 yard longer, because the right side just drops away. I mean, there's a small bunker there to catch you in case you're trying to go for it and go in, but it's a very dangerous hole. I mean, you could be from the members tees, you might be sitting there with a 6-iron in your hand in the par 5, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna go for the green and get an eagle here, and then next thing you know, you're in a bunker that's like 30 feet under the green, and it's really wild. So and then 11, we just added another tee box to 11 to make it a par 5 again. It's got a really interesting carryover, but no, it's hard to just say one hole,
Fair enough. All right, I'll wrap it up there. That is Greg Middleton, owner of Solina Golf Club. Greg, appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, that was fun. Appreciate it.